Hi, this is Lori Rubenstein, and this is the program Effing Your Way to a Great Relationship. There are 8 F's that you must consider in having a really fabulous relationship. The first F that I want to talk about is firmness. Firmness is a trait that's particularly associated with men. And as you see here, I have a picture of an oak tree. That's what I love picturing when I think about strong men. You know, somebody who's really rooted, who's grounded. They're a little bit flexible, you know, because they're trees, their branches flow a little bit, the leaves flutter a little bit. But really the stable place in the oak tree is in its trunk and in its roots. And they're really firm and they're really deep down in the ground. And it reminds me also of men who are strong and have boundaries, right? So one of the things that women really like, they're not going to admit it, but they really like it, is when a man does have firm boundaries and they say things like no. What happens in many relationships is that men try so hard to please their women that they lose their boundaries, they lose their strength, they're no longer saying the word no, they're just trying to please and please and please their wives, and what happens? The wimp factor happens. The wife ends up losing respect for the man. And what is that, men? I mean, I know that you know that that is really the beginning of death for a relationship. So think about if firmness is not part of your relationship, really start incorporating it more and more into your life. And that doesn't just go for romantic relationships. You know, we're talking about relationships at work, relationships with your parents, relationships with your kids, with your friends, with everybody you know. Have that relationship of boundaries and firmness, and demand respect from people. Women also, as I said, respond to firmness. And they're going to not just respect you, but really be like in awe of you. Like, wow, you know, he's so strong. I really like this. So what about firmness in women? The thing about firmness in women, boundaries are so great. You know, we teach men how to treat you at the very beginning of a relationship. But what often happens is we say, oh, we're just really clear, we're really firm. It's about control. It's disguised control. So yeah, it's great to have strong boundaries. It's really important to have strong boundaries. But if you've heard before from anybody that you're really controlling, just take a look at it. You know, don't dismiss it right away. Really, really look at it and see what that's all about for you. Number 2 is flirting. Flirting is awesome. It's wonderful. It's how you tell men that you're interested in them. When you want a man to approach you and you know that they're shy or they're more likely afraid that they're going to get rejected, if you're flirting with them, then they know that they're allowed to approach you. But what's more important, I mean, okay, that's really important. You know that that's important. But what's even more important is that it keeps things exciting and passionate inside the relationship. You know, if you flirted with your man when you first met, and now it's like, oh my God, it's all about like cleaning the underwear and cleaning the house and picking things up off the floor, you got to get back to that place of flirting with him. Number 3, and this is probably, I might say a couple of them are my favorites, but this probably is my most favorite one, and that is flexibility. And as I wrote here, maybe it should be number 1. Because happiness really depends on this trait of flexibility. You know, when you have somebody who's such a black and white thinker, there's just this right and this wrong, and they can't move away from that. It's really frustrating to live with someone like that, isn't it? But it's also frustrating to live inside that mind, you know, the mindset that there's a right and there's a wrong, and not to be more flexible in knowing that there's other ways to do things. And an example of this, I mean, this may sound a little trite, but I'm telling you, I hear these complaints from couples all the time, might be loading the dishwasher. People really have a right and wrong, like this is the way it's supposed to be, idea of loading the freaking dishwasher. There is no right and wrong. Guess what? There isn't. There are many ways to load a dishwasher that work. So really taking the time to examine your beliefs about things. You know, like, is it really true that there's only a right way, that there is this right way of loading the dishwasher? And then also, flexibility pertains when each other is growing and changing. You know, if you're in a relationship for a while with someone, they're not the same person that you got in the relationship with. For some people, that's really frustrating. There's a funny saying that men marry women and expect them to stay the same, and then they change. And women marry men hoping that they're going to change, but they stay the same. So, you know, basically you really don't know. You just have to be more flexible and go with the flow because, you know, that's the person that you chose. Number 4 is fondling. You know, men are very focused on sex. Have you noticed that? That men are very, very, very visual, and they're very, very interested in sex. And women are very interested in getting attention, being appreciated. Men like being appreciated too. They really love being respected. But it's one of these things that seems to lead men and women in opposite directions, and they end up being very frustrated because the men are wanting sex and the women are wanting attention, and it's one of those chicken and the egg things, you know, which one comes first. And what I'm going to do is really encourage men and say, the more you pay attention to her, and we're going to actually talk about foreplay in a bit, but the more you pay attention to her, the more interested she's going to be in having sex. So here's the complaint that I hear from women. He only touches me when he wants sex. He only kisses me when he wants sex. If I'm in the kitchen cooking and he comes up and he puts his hands on my shoulders and he starts rubbing my shoulders, I know that that's his message, his signal for wanting sex. And the women are saying, can't he just rub my shoulders anyway, just to rub my shoulders? Can't he just give me a kiss on the cheek? Can't we just make out? Can't we just fool around? I mean, there's all these things. So, men, if there is any way possible that you can fondle and fool around and touch and play without the goal being sex, honestly, you're probably more likely to get more sex if you're not pushing the issue.